Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Just remind you all today that you are enough. And Bruce Baker believes truly in these words. He's a business builder, profit coach, and so much more. Joining us today, and looks like we're going to tackle something that kind of trips up almost every entrepreneur out there, right? So, first and foremost, Bruce, welcome back to the show today. How are you?
Not bad, Jill. Great to be back again. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day here
Good.
in New York. How are things near
Yeah.
you?
Oh, the sun is shining, and that's a blessing this side of the world. So it's good.
But is it still chilly? Because you're in Alberta, right?
Well, it's springtime, but for most of the world, it's more winter time than anything else. It feels like winter.
Got it. All right. But the sun's shining. So, with
You betcha.
workplaces, you're joining us again here, always action packed. And we're going to chat more today. Just a little overview as to who you are, what you do before we begin today's conversation, please.
Yeah, you betcha. So, Jill, what we do in workplaces, we do three things for business owners. We either help them start up their business, scale up their business, or fix up their business when they're in trouble and make sure that they get out of trouble as soon as possible.
Well, that's amazing. You've been doing this for quite some time, plenty of years of experience, not trying to age you anything, but
Oh, well.
let's talk. You mentioned, you all heard this, right? You just need to manage your time better. Sometimes people say, right? But sometimes the idea of managing time is actually what keeps a lot of owners in this stuck kind of holding pattern type of thing, right? So let's talk a
Right.
little bit about that today and maybe why you think entrepreneurs have become so obsessed with this whole time management thing.
Yeah, and I'll repeat a little bit about what you said over there, but it is right. We're
Mm-hmm.
completely bombarded by manage your time better. The issue is that the idea of managing time is actually what keeps so many business owners stuck, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
is the irony, because they're told you got to manage your time better. Especially when you start up a business or when you start growing the business, things become extremely overwhelming depending where you are on your growth stage of your business. So frustration mounts. We start to burn out, and that's the last thing that any business owner needs. So the real problem, time isn't something we can actually manage. It moves forward,
Okay.
whether we like it or not. I've always said
Yep.
we can
True.
hold over money to the next day and hopefully save some. We can't transfer our minutes to the next day, unfortunately, right? We can't slow anything down,
I know, right?
right? We can't pause it. So, but what we can do and what we overlook for the most part is our actions. So what I want to get people to start thinking about is, if I can't manage time, you can't really manage time because it's an intangible component. Excuse me. What we can manage is action. So the trap that we fall into, something I heard a client talk to me about 3-4 days ago, said, if I can just color code my calendar, set 10 more minutes, or block every minute of my day, then I'm finally be productive. And how many people do you know that actually do this or go to a time management course and come out and they're great time managers? It usually what happens is that we just get busier. It's also called the Parkinson's law or the Parkinson's effect. The more supply we provide, in this case time, the more we use. All right. So we spin our wheels. We end up exhausted, wondering why we never feel on top of things.
Why is it?
What's that?
I said, why is it?
Well, it's at the end of the day, people are, or business owners were trying to manage time, and time is the
Mhm.
intangible. And at the end of the day, our brains don't like the intangible. We can think about abstract ideas, but we don't connect in the actual action stuff. So when we zero in on the
Exactly.
actions,
Yeah.
the stuff that really matters, that moves the needle.
I was
And
gonna
what and
joke. I was gonna joke and say why? Because I don't have enough time. All
you're
right, all
right.
right. Oh,
Right.
all
So,
right.
so
Well,
it's interesting you say that, Jill, because this is the problem. Is like, Bruce, why can't you get this done for me? I asked you a week ago, and I'm running out of time. I just don't have enough time. And the more we do that, the more we think, right? We're spinning. And that's
Yeah.
the stuff that we want to get people out of. And once it happens, man, is it liberating. It's an incredible impact on business owners' productivity and time that they use.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you for that. And let's talk maybe if you could share some personal stories when you realized that time management really wasn't the answer.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's, when you get through this,
Hmm.
um, it's it's huge. So, I'll speak of a client that I still work with today. It's been almost 6 years. His name's Conrad, and construction is the industry. I met Conrad for the first time, and the first thing he said to me is, Bruce, I am overwhelmed. I've got this business that, at the time was about 3 to 4 years old. The business is going through some significant growth spurts, and I just I just can't handle it all. So we sat down, and I remember counting 330. I think it was 338 action items or to do items.
Oh,
And you can imagine with someone trying to grow a business and trying to gain this traction to the next growth curve, they've got these 338 or whatever it was action plans that they need to take, or action items that they need to take care of. And as he said, quote unquote, I cross one out, I complete this, and five are added on. I do another one, another five are added on.
wow.
And no matter how hard I try, it continues to add on. So, I said to him, I asked him the question. I said, Conrad, if we could completely make this move away by the end of this week, make a big shift, would that be of some interest to you? And long story short, we use the tool, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. We use the tool to shift his mindset from thinking
Hmm.
about how do I manage 60 seconds? How do I manage an hour? How do I manage a minute? Whatever the case may be, to one of looking at the actual things, the actions, the stuff that needs, the results that need to take place, and what actions and decisions I need to make and how to fix it up. And long story short, by the end of the week, guess what happened? Um, Probably sitting with about, I think it was just over 25 or 26 items from the 300 and something items he had initially.
Ooh. Ooh. See?
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Wow. Well,
yeah,
y- there's also some actions, some priorities that people need to kind of put in place.
yeah,
Yeah, when they kind of shift away from all this time management stuff. So, really,
yeah.
what should they be prioritizing?
It's a great question, and therein is the issue, right? Or I wouldn't even say issue. Therein
Yeah.
is the solution. And people have heard about goals and objectives. People have heard about the time management component, but
Yeah.
not many people have heard about, instead of time management, that's a fallacy. It doesn't
Okay.
exist. I want to encourage people, especially entrepreneurs, business owners, regardless of where they're at. I want to encourage them to start thinking about action management. Take the focus off of, I've got 3 hours left over for the day, but I got to get this completed. I have 8 hours or 9 hours or 10 hours tomorrow, and I've got so much stuff to do. I just don't know how I'm going to get through it. To thinking about actions as your tangible. Now, there's a great man in our history called Mr. Eisenhower, and we all know who Dwight Eisenhower was and who he became. But one of the cool
Yeah.
things that he left us with, and this was just during the Second World War and after, was the Eisenhower Matrix. And the focus of the Eisenhower Matrix was really around utilizing the time effectively in order to get the most important and the most urgent things completed. And this also included using delegation, that kind of stuff. But the problem with that matrix, especially in today's application, today's world, is that it's not necessarily, it was still a focus on the time you had available. I want to shift people's mindsets and talk about the actions that need to be taken, the actions that need to be taken in your business when you're a business owner or entrepreneur, but
Okay.
also the action that you need to take on your business, right? So when we think about, here's a little analogy. When we think about working in and on your business and the actions you need to take, forget about time for a second. There's a little story I tell a lot of business owners, and there's this guy in the middle of the boreal forests, and he's one of the, let's call it a forest ranger or officer, whatever you want to call him, and he's walking through the forest and he sees a dead tree. So he says, "Oh my goodness!" So he cuts the tree down, and inside the tree, what does he see? He sees a little critter called a pine beetle. And if we all know about pine beetles, for those that don't know about pine beetles, it's a pest. It's not native to these forests. But the crazy thing about the pine beetle is that it can withstand temperatures of minus 40 plus, I think it is. They've got like an antifreeze in their blood. But the problem with the pine beetle is that it absolutely destroys forests, and it's quite rampant. And anyway, so coming back to the story, and he sees another tree and he cuts and he cuts and he cuts. His crew comes in and they're cutting trees over and over again. And finally, one of his colleagues, we'll call her Jill, one of his colleagues come up and say, "What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I'm absolutely trying to get rid of these pine beetles. It's devastating the forest, and my guys are working really, really hard." So she says to him, or suggests to him, "Why don't we get into our helicopter? We'll fly to the canopy of the forest and we'll look over and see what's going on." So what does he say? And most business owners or leaders can identify with this. "I don't have the time, Jill, to come with
Don't
you and
have the
check it out."
time. Yep.
Right? And Jill eventually drags him into the helicopter, kicking and screaming, goes up there for about 45 minutes. And what does he see? He sees this mass devastation, right, for thousands and thousands of miles. And suddenly his mind starts to change. The way of thinking starts to change. So now he's not working in the business where he was stuck. He's now starting to work on the business as well. And there's a critical balance between those two. So the big question is, how do you connect this with the time management thing and the action management thing we're talking about? Well, like I said, push the time management concept out of your mind, bring in action management. And action management are the most important and most urgent tasks or actions that you need to take that are going to impact your business internally. In other words, when you're working in your business or in the forest. And those actions that are most important and are most urgent, in other words, do them now, they're going to impact your business when you're working on your business. And creating a balance between those two is an incredibly, incredibly impactful, for a positive reason, of course, in your business. And that's going back to Conrad, the CEO of the construction company, going back to him, his movement from eliminating the whole time management idea to an action management idea and focusing and dividing things up like that and working toward it is why he actually managed to reduce a 300-point list down to a 25, 26-point list. And that's how it happens.
Wow. Impressive.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This is great. Bruce Baker here talking to us. Don't forget, he's our business builder, profit coach. Just reminding you, he's here today and really talking about what we all say, most entrepreneurs say, right? It's like there's never enough time, right? So the idea of managing time can be lead to burnout, can be frustrating, and leave you stuck. All right, Bruce, what's next?
Well, I'll end off with the topic because I know I've spoken everybody's heads off over here, but I'll end off with the topic when it comes to utilizing this tool, and we call it the important urgent matrix. Really, if you imagine 4 blocks, and you'll notice that this is a little different between other matrices or other tools, but ultimately what you want to do is you want to take all the actions that you deem are important and you put them in the block below to the, I would say, to the left-hand side, or actually to the right-hand side of that matrix. And you'll notice that all your to-dos, all your action items are just bundled in there. What I want you to do then is I want you to ask the question, if these are all highly important, which one of those are the most urgent? And then what I'd like you to do is to take those and put them on the top. So the top block to the right of the matrix.
Okay.
And that those you'll find what happens is that you've got 3 or 4 that are highly important but are highly urgent. Take those and each one determine how much time it's actually going to take me. In other words, do I need an hour? Do I need 40 minutes? Do I need 3 hours to complete this? And once you've determined that, make sure that you add on an extra 15, 20 minutes. Us humans have a tendency to be a little bit over positive about what we can actually do within a little bit of time. So sometimes we run out of time. So add on an extra 15 minutes to that most important, most urgent component. And the last thing I want you to do, let's say you add an hour to that, I want you to put it into your calendar automatically right after that. Don't hesitate. Put it into your calendar. And then I want you to commit to that time. If it's an invite in your calendar, you have invited yourself to a very important and urgent meeting to take care of that item, right? And what you'll see is that the overwhelm slowly but surely disappears because you don't have 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 items that are all important. You now have 3 or 4 items that are extremely important and urgent. Forget about the other ones. Focus on those. Now, I will say the last point I'll make on that, Jill, there are a lot of folks out there that, and I've been challenged from this before, talking about this model, is that, well, what happens if things change throughout the day? I can't always control that, and that's perfectly fine. But it's important to understand the nature of why those things become more urgent than what you've got now. When you finished work for the day, sit down and look what's happening tomorrow and plot it out, prepare it. No more than 10, 15 minutes. When you come into the morning and you start your work in the office, take another 10 minutes. Look at, does everything that I have on my list that is highly important or urgent, is everything still applicable for the day? And what do I have in my calendar? And I can absolutely guarantee the folks that are listening right now that putting this together, using this for at least a week, starts to make an incredible difference to you and your productivity in your business.
Perfectly said. Thank you so much. And also, we still have hold on, my goodness, we have 7 minutes left still. So we're going to talk more about some tips, right, to help us with managing our time and, of course, break some of that down, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just probably adding on to what I said before, it's you and I have spoken about this in previous episodes, previous recordings. We tend to get stuck in places, call them axioms, call them, the traditional orthodox stuff that we get taught to do, whether it's, focusing on money, and last week we spoke about, this really chaotic and hectic relationship that we have with money. Money and time, for lack of a better term, both equal something that is very important, and that's profit.
Okay.
If we utilize money effectively, we have money left over, and that will create profitability. But that's only 50% of the equation.
Okay.
What we're talking about today is the time. Time is a resource just like money. Like I said earlier on, you can't carry those minutes over. But the way that we use time, and I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but just for the purposes of clarity for everybody, if you don't utilize that 1,000, I think it's 1,440 minutes a day or whatever it is.
I can't.
Right?
I'm gonna get the calculator out for that one. I'm curious myself. Is it? It is. I think. Hi. Yeah.
But if you're right, but if you're
cute.
not going to utilize that resource for the most important and urgent actions in your business, and you don't move yourself away from the same old,
yep,
you're going to continue to be stuck in this place. And I can promise the folks that are listening right now that once you commit to this for at least a week, it's a game changer.
Well, let's tell them what they should be doing then, because if they are ready to take that first step, what should they be doing?
Absolutely. Well, the good news is that there is an ebook coming out. It'll be on our site very shortly about this very topic. And in that ebook will be obviously much depth conversation than what you and I have been talking about today, but also there'll be a fantastic tool that will provide everybody to work through. One of the key components, and this is an invite, I guess, to anybody that's listening, is shoot us an email, give us a call. We'll shortly be having a chat function on the section where this will be, and challenge us, right? Saying, Bruce, how do we do it in this situation? How do we do it in that situation? All I ask our listeners to do is take a week, just take a week, 10 minutes before the morning starts, before your morning gets going, look at what you've plotted, look at what you've scheduled. Is it still relevant? Work through the day. At the end of the day, sit down again, have a good look, whether you build that matrix on a whiteboard in your office, or whether it's an Excel sheet, or whether it's sticky notes on your desk, or wherever it is. Look at that at the end of the day, make sure it's still relevant, prepare yourself for tomorrow. This is 20 minutes maximum of your time every single day. And I can promise you it's a game changer.
It sure is. And you have how many years of experience now with this, Bruce? Just saying. Not trying to date you.
No, probably. Well, my beard dates me already, so that's okay. But it's about 27 to 28 years of doing this, probably close to 30.
And what do you think? Could you give us a little tip or two and advice to maybe what we need to start doing to start freeing up that time? Could you share something else?
There is one thing that I will say, Jill, is become free of what you've been taught. Empty your glass. I forget who said that, but empty your glass and what you know. If you are doubting your ability to embrace and work with a tool like this and change something that it's not going to be comfortable for you the first couple of days, right?
Yeah, of course.
You can embrace that. I can guarantee and promise people on this call that massive action brings a lot of change and a lot of positive change for you. If your business is struggling, right? It's struggling because of the actions or inactions that you are not taking or taking. If your business needs to grow, but you just don't have that capacity to grow at this stage from a action and activity standpoint, it's because of the lack of action or the incorrect actions that you're taking. And this tool, this process or way of thinking will absolutely change that for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And Bruce Baker, always a pleasure speaking to you. And can't wait to do it again. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. Have a good one.
How do we contact you?
Oh, yes, that's an important one. So our website, www.4workplaces.com, 4 workplaces.com. Email info@4workplaces.com. And of course, if you want to give us a call, we're always happy to chat, 780-850-6957.
Perfect. Thanks so much. You have a fantastic day. Enjoy the weather.
You too, Jill.
Hopefully it gets a little warmer for you. Same here too.
You betcha.
Thank you
Your
again.
side too.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.